welcome back to ShiftCast episode 14. Michael is back in action. Jens is here as always. We've got a fun week, split two, major two, whatever the freaking verbiage is for these things now. We're headed into it. It's an exciting time. We just had NA, Sam, and Mina compete. One of the biggest things that I'm excited that they changed from last split to this one is balancing things out a little bit. So next weekend we have EU, or we also had SSA, excuse me. We have EU, OCE, and APAC this upcoming weekend as well. So a little better balance, maybe a little bit easier to consume across the board.
Yeah,
And
it's nice.
we got a lot to talk about. So Michael, what's going on? How are we feeling?
I was gonna quickly say, first of all, it's great to be back.
Okay,
I've
welcome
missed
back.
you guys so much. Just looking at your faces for an hour and a half a week, it keeps me going. But it's really nice that Silence has decided to move all the fun competitive regions to one weekend, and then Europe is on the other weekend. I've really enjoyed sitting down and actually watching,
Okay. Okay, guy.
a region where teams can beat each other after the top 8 instead of the same thing over and over again. So it's been very nice. Thank you. Another great change by Blast. We'll call it Fun Weekend and then EU Weekend. How about that?
Okay,
So you enjoy the first fun weekend. And listen, I had to take a week off because, well, let's just say I was at a conference of minds.
Yeah.
And we were all sitting around. We were discussing being the greatest minds in the esport. Many people that I'm sure some of the community knows there. And at one point, the host came up and said, listen, we need to talk about something. We need to honor someone. We need to honor Michael from the ShiftCast for being not only attacked, but foreseeing the truth about North American Rocket League. And that is that
it's NG
Mobile One Racing is the best team in North America. Because let me tell you something. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
All right. When you beat a team 4 times in a row, in some sports they call that a sweep. There's no question. There's no question that you're a better team. And when you go to a tournament and you both play the same team that won, and one team plays better against the other one, it just feels like the evidence has completely stacked up in my favor. That Mr. First Killer, the Jason Al-Gaib, has once again risen to the top of North America. But I want to get you guys' opinions. I don't want to glow too much because, long season.
It's a
what did you guys
overtime.
He has taken the T-bait strat where you swing and swing and swing and you take the same team forever until they finally walk into what you predicted months ago.
Listen, you might call it a strat. What I call it is grinding the tape and really seeing what works and what doesn't work. Seems like Gen G, they just have figured out what I saw in them. And, I couldn't be happier to finally be vindicated once again, really. It's been almost 2 months since G2 even got a win against them. It's, kind of a belt-to-ass tour, as Patrick Beverly would say. But yeah, I want to get your guys' opinion about this sudden, because it looked like at the beginning of the year, I was totally wrong. It looked like G2 could just dominated Gen G, 8-1 in the first 9 games they played, 2-0 in series. What do you think about this? Is it true? I know G2 did so well at the major. They beat some really, really good teams, but is Gen G, am I right? Is Gen G really the team to beat in North America?
Are we being serious right now? They needed 2 overtimes in that grand finals against G2 to get there, and one of them in game 7. It was incredibly close.
Well, who won them? Who won the games?
I mean, yeah, Gen G just got out on top, but it was game 7 overtime. You cannot say anything.
But they've won 4 series in a row.
They did, and
they beat them 4 times in a row.
You can be right about them being the best team right now. That's fine. But it's by this much.
Oh, they are.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't say they're running away with it.
Okay, so all right, well that's fine. That doesn't matter.
Then we agree. Yeah,
and to be fair, I think anybody that was coming after you out your take at the beginning, if they were saying the same about G2, they were wrong as well. Like those teams have always been 1A, 1B. I remember when you were making the take, and we saw how things panned out the first couple of events. I felt like that was not the true Gen G yet. Like they're both. It's the best talent in North America, right? Like those are the 6 best players. Those are the 2 best teams, and it's not close. They're 1A and 1B right now. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Gen G certainly has the wins recently, and the common the common opponent there with Gentlemates, they fared better against Gentlemates than G2 did in the major. So I think it's a fair claim.
I want to say quickly too, I think it's more than just like, oh, they beat them close a few times. I think it's a genuine playstyle thing. I think Gen
Sure.
G's playstyle gives G2 problems because G2 likes to sit and counterattack, and they're maybe the best counterattacking team in the world. Like that counterattacking stuff doesn't really work anymore, and they have found a way to make it work at a really high level. But Gen G, like they're so happy to just force, 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 force. Jack has, become such a first man in that respect that I think that G2 is going to have to. It was almost like a consequence of G2 being so good that I think I mentioned this before. It feels like Gen G, a lot of what their playstyle is, has been formed to beat G2 specifically. So I wonder, you got to wonder, like, is this a playstyle thing? Is Gen G's like sort of force the issue ball and the fact they can mechanically keep up really the reason that they seem to win all these like split events? Because while all their series are close, it feels like Gen G's always the one, even though they did play a fair amount of defense, they're always the one that's willing to take that risk, later in series and do the thing that they had to do. I mean, I think about like it felt like, in that game 7 overtime, right? They were G2 were clearly, despite being so experienced, super nervous. They kept double committing. Atomic and
Yeah,
Beast
they
Mode couldn't
did.
get of each other's
Yeah.
way. Right. And it feels like because they're almost have to start forcing the issue, they don't have as much experience, maybe. But Gen G, like I think that they're really figuring it out, while G2 I think has some stuff to figure out.
What do you make of the Chrome edition?
Well, listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Chrome. I'm going to be honest. As a coach, he seems like a very nice man, but I thought he did a great job, and I got to give credit where credit's due. I had to watch the Space Station team slowly peter off as I was a huge Space Station fan, so I think gave me Chrome doubts. But I did mention, I can't remember if it was on this podcast or somewhere else, that I thought that Chrome had gotten stuck into a play style that he really believed in, and I think the time off was really good for him to adjust to the new version of the game, because when he had Daniel and LJ and Arsenal, it seemed like they were playing sort of a play style that was really vulnerable to the Gen G play style in North America that started to dominate. So I think you take a year off, or I don't know if it was a full year, but it was like a split off. You do some stuff with FaZe, but that was like a team in free fall. You can't really fault them for that. You come back with a fresh new approach and all the experience of coaching at the highest level for so long. I think it makes sense. And I think what he's been able to do is he didn't try to impose anything. He said, you keep playing your game. I'm going to bring my ability to in-game adjust, which has always been a big thing with Chrome. And I think it helped. I don't think they beat the Snowmen without the in-game adjustments, and I don't think they're able to hold off G2 in Game 7 without those in-game adjustments.
What would you describe as the Gen G playstyle now?
Well, the Gen G playstyle initially was like the Noli, Appjack, Chronic team I'm talking about, where they were just challenging a lot faster than all the other NA teams. And I think Space Station, which is played very slow, tried to kind of creep up and then create space for Daniel. I think when there's just guys flying in your face all the time, you can't create space for anybody if you're just trying to like chill out. And I think that the Daniel centric stuff, well, I'm sure it wasn't just the coach's decision, was holding LJ back, right? We saw as soon as he left, they were able to move the ball in a little more. And so I think what it seemed to me, at least, is that Chrome realized what was going on wrong at SSG and fixed it with another team that he could easily default to give first killer the ball, but instead he's really let them play their game, which is Jack create something, right? Jack is always first. He's demoing, he's attacking, he's challenging, and then Chronic and first killer are tasked with using their mechanics to finish or create a secondary opportunity from there.
Who do you think the slowest players are in a G2 Gen G matchup? I have the stats, so this is
this is actually
quiz
kind of a
question.
fun exercise. I would actually guess that first killer is quite slow compared to the others. I think Jack is probably up there in how quick he is. I feel like first killer is behind the ball a lot. And then I would say probably just off the fact that he has to play so much defense, I would assume Daniel.
Okay, well, not really. It was
I know
Atomic
Zero
and
Ball.
Chronic.
I
who
want
were
to say
the
Atomic's
slow
so bad.
players, and
Mhm.
Daniel and Beast Mode, and apparently Jack and First Killer were the ones being speedy most of the time.
That's interesting. I would have thought of Atomic's kind of weird to judge because like I never know what he's up to, you know? It's like he's just doing whatever on the field and it works and it doesn't.
I mean, he's a good defensive player. That helps.
Yeah. No, I mean he's obviously fantastic. But speaking of Space Station in the top 4, anybody?
Yeah,
They beat they beat the allegations.
they beat the allegations. You know, you were talking about the Gen G and G2 rivalry, play style matchup, etc. Maybe a little bit of nerves playing into some of G2's like late series losses that they've dropped. Um, I actually was more, I guess, kind of put off or worried by that series against Space Station. I do think Space Station is a great team, and I think we'll get to this thing where everybody talked about where should they have been at the major, where they bracketed in split one, etc. Um, but I think even if all those things are true, I still do think that G2 and Gen G should be, a step
Mhm.
ahead of Space Station. And G2 didn't. It looked fairly level there with Space Station. In fact, I
Yeah.
think Space Station was really, in position to win some games and take that series if they had just, been able to finish one or two extra shots or maybe come up with a big save here or there. Um, Space Station looked really, really good. And I think it's one of those things. It's probably where it's, again, fence sitting Hootie. Here I go. But it's probably a little bit better performance from Space Station when they
Mhm.
did finally get off of that quarterfinal
Mhm.
issue. They finally make it to the top 4. And they're in a position where they know G2 is supposed to beat them, right? They're the underdogs. You can kind of relax and play your game. Um, and I think it's a little bit of Space Station playing up and G2 maybe playing down a little bit in this event.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that there was almost there must have been some sort of, I'm sure it didn't factor that much into play, but there had to have been sort of like a weight off their chest when they
Yeah,
saw
definitely.
they didn't have to play at one of the top 2 teams in that
I mean, they
quarterfinal.
were live tweeting it. Sad Junior
Yeah.
was like, not again.
Yeah. And so, and I think also it's a challenge, right? Because you have, big figures in the esports saying that you guys should have been there, and it's
Yeah,
the only reason you weren't there is because of the format. And then you have a team in your quarterfinal that is directly benefited from
OG
this quote unquote
Esports.
format. Yeah,
mhm,
right. OG. So if you lose to them, all that talk
that's
is
right.
gone,
Yeah,
right? You have now proven that it was nothing. You just weren't good enough. And I think for them, that must have meant a lot, right? Where it's like
hmm
we need to do this for us. We need to make sure that we know that we are still that good. We can go to a LAN and compete better than the other 2 NA teams that went. We just got unlucky in scheduling, right?
And
But
they
I would
made it with a comfortable win as well,
yeah,
4-1.
dominate them. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I think if they don't give up two goals in, what was it, 10 seconds against G2 in that game
yeah,
4 or game 5, that's probably SSG's series.
mhm,
And obviously G2 won. You can't take it away from them, but they were literally that close. So
yeah,
I
I
think
mean, they were ahead in the series until a
yeah,
timeout from G2, and then they
mhm.
couldn't turn it around with the timeout before Champions Field. But I mean, that is a super close series. That does look like two teams, like you said, Hoodie, that are kind of on the same level, where
yeah,
you wouldn't expect G2 to be playing down to Space Station level, if you can say it like that.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight quickly LJ this weekend. I
Mm,
didn't think LJ looked like the LJ from the World Championship in the spring split last split. Maybe it was just adjusting to the new team and not having a player as enablery as he did last year. That LJ, that's the LJ that had
he's
everyone
back.
thinking he might be the best player in North America.
Yeah,
He was unbelievable against, obviously there's that stat, that shift what we put out that was like he averaged 3 goals a game against NRG, which is ridiculous. He had a 2.0 rating. But even against G2 and against
yeah.
OG, he looked like the best player on the field. And if SSG is going to do anything, just because of how talented those top teams are, they're going to need that. They're going to need to continue
Yeah.
to play a way that allows LJ to shine.
So a good event here, a good start to the second split for Space Station. They got a top 4. That's a great way to get yourself off started on the right foot on the track to the major. We had another team make their
Mm.
first top 4 appearance ever. Snowmen. Some players on the shift next up candidacy and or the roster, and I mean I was just unbelievably impressed. I mean, I was optimistic about this team. I think they had a lot of ability, mechanics wise, but getting into Saturday, getting into Sunday, that's territory that they're unfamiliar with. They're relatively inexperienced players, and we may say that experience doesn't matter, and I think maybe sometimes we put too much stock in it. But I'm certain that those days feel more intense, right? I'm certain that those days feel heavier for those new players. They are excited to be there. They want to show out, and they want to show everybody that they can compete with some of the best in the region. And so to see them play, not only 3-0 through Swiss and take out Gen G in one of those matches, but to even in their loss, I mean, was very competitive with Gen G. It was a back and forth series, took them deep into the series. So, I'll say this too. I think this is gonna sound crazy, but I think I was more encouraged by their loss to Gen
Hmm.
G than their win. Like that Gen G that they faced when they lost was a much better Gen G than in Swiss. Gen G in Swiss was just very, very
Yeah.
bland.
Yeah.
Jack tweeted about it. He didn't feel
They
super
missed a ton
confident.
of open shots
That's
too.
right. They weren't themselves in Swiss, and I think that's
Mhm.
very obvious by that round 5 result. But that series in the playoff bracket, Snowman played them so well. There was timeouts involved. That's uncharted territory for those players. That was a very good performance for those young guns.
Yeah, and of course, there's no shame in stranding against Gen G, but
Right.
like you said, 3-0 in Swiss, and then even making it into the top 4, getting that quarterfinal win, it made people wonder if Moist and Cloud9 had made the right pickup choices there,
Yeah, totally.
because they're now an unsigned team with 2 of the just about higher rated, because they have more points, unsigned teams being picked up before this regional, and look at what they do. They prove
Yeah.
everyone wrong.
And I got to say, I think there was all kinds of discussion about it, and there's plenty of teams that are worthy of being picked up. So there's no shade to any players, but I was surprised specifically by Moist because they've already kind of done that thing, right, where they took a
Yeah, it
gamble on
felt very much like up
exactly
their alley. Well,
like
even
a queso,
C9.
an unproven team that seems to be on the come up, has a lot of mechanical upside to them. So I was a little surprised as well, but strictly because of that prior pickup with the original Moist.
Well, C9 kind of did the same thing when they first got into Rocket League all the
That's
way
true,
back, right?
actually.
Picking up the
Yeah.
Muffin Man. So there is like a little bit of
Yeah.
precedent. I wanted to say quickly about the series. I really agree with you, Hoodie, in that the 7 games and the fact that it is Sunday and Saturday is a big deal. And
Yeah.
I think that was the difference. The difference was that there was one team in Gen G that had been there a bunch of times and understood how to play out of a timeout and how to use a timeout. And there was another team that had never seen a team come out with a completely different philosophy after a 60-second break, right?
Sure.
Like they had never been in a situation where a team had taken a timeout on them, like and regrouped. Their momentum comes off, and they come out and they know exactly what they're going to do. And so I think the Snowmen, like it's only up from here.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people have been comparing them to that old K-Stone Most roster. I don't personally think it's fair to compare them to them. That
Sure.
was a once in a lifetime freak thing where 3 of the 10 best players in the world happened to be on the same team and figure out that they were that good at the same time. But can they be the team Liquid? And remember Liquid in the spring, their first full split together of 21-22 was like a top 6, a top 4, I think. And then they made the major and went like I think top 8 in double elim.
Mhm.
So if the Snowmen stay again a top 8 and maybe another top 4, make the land and go 9th through 11th, that's pretty much where a Toe, Oski, and a Chronic were
Yeah.
after their first split together. And I think that's an incredible split for one player who wouldn't even be allowed to play last year, and 2 other players that are very, very young. So, I'm so excited. I thought the C9 win was so big because those are 3 players on
Yeah.
C9 that have been the gatekeepers of that next level of NA for a very long time, and they made light work of them. So
Yeah.
let's go Snowman. I'm all
Let
in.
it snow.
I have one
Yeah.
gripe, and that's that they didn't get to use their logo on the streams.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
Happened with Hogan mode
Unbelievable.
last year too. We got to be a little more lax with that. I
I
don't know what
know.
it is.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
not
I
the
think
only
Hogan
team
mode. Yeah.
that we want. The only teams that we want to talk about. I think. Have you? Well, we I guess since this split has started, we haven't really talked about it. Do you guys want just real quick? Do y'all have your? I don't want to call it predictions, but who you think is going to make the NA major? And obviously, we now have an event
Ooh.
under our belt. But I'll go ahead and say, like at the beginning of the split, I thought it would be Space Station and M80. I
Mhm.
felt Space Station was. I just felt like they were due. Like surely they won't continue to have such tough matchups in quarterfinals. And even if they do, maybe they'll snag one and get to top 4. And I also felt that a lot of their peers, like the thing is, like we've got G2 and Gen G right here, and then I
Mhm.
think we have a slight gap, and then we have Space Station, and then maybe and maybe they're all the same tier, but maybe a slight gap, and then we have freaking LG, OG, Space Station, or not Space Station. We have Cloud9, we have Snowman, we have TSM, we have NRG, Dig. There's
Rebellion.
just a huge slew of teams that can all beat up on each other. So I felt like Space Station, if they can show some level of consistency, everyone's going to be knocking each other around. Some people are going to miss some top eights, etc. So I felt good about Space Station. And M80 has shown consistency in Swiss. They may not have been able to go top 4, top 2 just yet, but they've got the talent, and I feel like they're due as well. So that's where my mind goes with that. But do you guys have thoughts about the other two teams? Because it's I mean, G2 and Gen G are all but locked. So
I mean, if you just look at last regional, you'd say Space Station and M80. I think those are the most reasonable picks, especially
yeah,
because, well, Space Station finally broke their
yeah,
own curse and now actually has a chance to get the points. And M80 might not have made out of the quarterfinals, but the only teams they lost to in Swiss are G2 and Space Station.
mhm,
So if you can keep that up, if you can only lose to the teams above you
right.
and take all the wins against the teams below you, then you're set for another for a major appearance for them. So I really like those picks.
And
Yeah,
Michael, you
I
you're
would.
you're on the M80 train, or
So I think this four would be my favorite four to go, just because of the upside. But I'm gonna hold strong, and I'm gonna win over Slater Nation. I'm gonna go with
okay,
LG,
okay, okay,
just because I think they're. I just think that I believe in their system a little bit more than all the
sure,
other ones.
yeah,
I mean, we'll talk about it in a moment, but to me, like we keep saying M80s do, but like time is running out.
it
Like
is,
there
it
are
is. You're right.
two more
I
qualifiers,
know.
and if they can't figure it out in one of
Yeah,
those two qualifiers enough to make the final,
yeah,
their season's over. And I
mm,
think so. I'm gonna. And LG has mostly been a top 8 team.
yeah,
They had one final run, so they could maybe M80 does exactly what they do. But I'm gonna believe in the sort of um, the commitment to building something and working on the small things and the
yeah.
play style that LG has shown, as opposed to M80, who I want them to show me something so bad
I
because I
know.
like the
That's how
roster,
I
but they
feel.
just haven't yet.
I know. I know. I feel
Actually,
the
let's
exact
talk
same.
about that.
It's
Let's talk about luminosity. Let's
yeah.
take it to the next topic. Because what the hell is getting swept by Nether Canada like for them? Like, what is
Do I have
that?
to say it again? Listen, you don't want to play Canadians in the RLCS. We have carried this region for a long time, and we'll continue to carry the region. Yeah,
Okay,
that was just like a complete
but
stinker. I
the
don't know what
problem
happened there.
is, if you look at that net team and their
Mhm.
other matches, they got swept every other game, every other series. They didn't win another game.
Yeah,
That
well,
is not that's and listen, maybe it was just a really poor series.
mhm.
Maybe it's a matchup thing, like you said, Michael, but it definitely, I mean,
It
and
doesn't bode
Luminosity
well.
just they have this
No,
knack
no,
for
not at
making
all.
things as difficult as possible. They just
Yeah,
don't.
and you play such a dangerous game. Like you
Yes.
go to round 5 every time, you're not going to run into the Muffin Men every time.
Right.
Sometimes you're going to run into Gen G Mobile One Racing,
Yeah.
the fourth, fifth, sixth best team in the world, who is going to mop you because they're better than you.
Yep.
And if you know how you avoid having to run into it and say, well, we would have made top 8 if we didn't play Gen G. You don't go top 8 because you got
That's right.
dropped by Justice, who hasn't played in the RLCS in like 2 years.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, I mean, look,
No
they're privy
disrespect
to
to my
these things.
Dutch guy, but yeah.
No, but I mean, he would probably tell you the same thing, that he probably didn't expect to make the regional on his first regional back, maybe like second, third. But LG is privy to this. They have had some stinkers. They usually just even it out throughout, and they just couldn't do it this time. Like
well,
it, it's
I
bad.
think I've talked about this with Europe and how I think it's gonna be more challenging to split. We're seeing
Mhm.
some teams flourish. I think the Snowman team is a new horse in the race, obviously. And with them going top 4, that's taken a lot of points. That they have stolen some points that other teams could be grabbing. Um, I'm sure that Dig will come back with a vengeance. I think NRG looks stronger with Aqua. Um, Space Station, I think is
They look like the third best team.
they
I'm gonna be
look yeah
honest. They
they
look like they figured something out in
we
the
all
off
said that
season.
they were, we thought they were, etc. But they look it now, right? They're
Yeah,
showing it and even competing
Yeah.
with G2. I think really,
like
but I think it's gonna be more difficult, and they've dug themselves a hole here by hitting that round 5 and being knocked out. So LG has got to. I mean, frankly, I think they've got to overperform in these next 2 events.
I think with SSG, and maybe you guys will agree, it felt like last split we were kind of debating like maybe they are.
Yeah,
If they
yeah,
had played like this, they probably beat Gen G in those
I agree.
first two
One
top
time.
eights when Gen G didn't look good.
Hmm.
They just like they looked like they were playing the way they played with Arsenal when they were looking like the best team in North America last year. They look like they were playing like that this year. And
Yeah.
they made mistakes, but like SSG has always been a mistake team. They're just a cursed org because I was a fan of them for a while. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's just. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think there's OG is probably in the best spot. M80 should be, but like I said, they have to show us something at one point. Like we can't be going off
Do-
potential at this late into the
Dude,
season.
what are the chances that Snowmen clutch up and
I
they
would
go
love
another
that.
top 8, top 4?
I would love
It's
that.
definitely on the cards now with a performance like this. It's all
Right.
about getting those points because there's only 3 chances to do so.
That's right.
And if you're going to the semifinals, you're getting some really good points there over the
Mhm.
others. I mean, even if you just equal their performance, the other
Right.
team's performances for the rest of the split, you're still going to come out ahead. So that's just a huge win. Getting some more points than M80, than OG. I still think that Space Station Gaming, I mean, they got just as much point, but also I feel like they're the team that
Yeah.
would be making it anyway. So we're more looking at the other opponents like Shopify Rebellion,
Yep.
Cloud9, TSM. Yeah, there's so many. There's
There's
so
so
many.
many, man. There's
I
so
thought
many.
Shopify played really well this weekend, and they
Yeah,
just
they
ran
look
into
good.
they ran to a Gen G that was really pissed that they didn't play well, and they just
Right,
turned on
right.
the Jets. But they were better than like a 4-0 sweep in
Yeah.
top 8.
Yeah.
Like they played better than OG to me. They played better than C9 to me. They're like a sleeper pick, but I'm not dying on that hill again. I'll tell
Yeah,
you
no,
that. They gotta prove it to me.
then you're going off potential, and then you're maybe
Yeah.
looking like,
Sure.
do they have what it takes? But if you
Mhm.
just look at their games, I mean, yeah, they're only lost in Swiss against Space Station Gaming. I feel like that's really important to harp on because if you're only losing against the teams that are going to place above you, then you're all good as long
Right.
as there's no more than 3 teams above you.
Yeah.
Right?
Literally.
And if
That's
those
right.
three teams are G2, Gen G, and Space Station Gaming, I mean, Shopify
Yeah, but how
Rebellion
many
can
teams
lose.
can we say that are just like only losing to those 3 teams?
That's
at
the
this
thing
point?
though. There's a huge chunk
Like
of them.
I'm pretty sure the Snowmen, because they only lost once, only lost to one of those 3 teams. Was it? Did you say Cloud9? Only no, sorry.
Yep.
Shopify only lost to one of those 3
Yep.
teams. There was another team, I believe. Oh, it was M80 only lost to those 3,
M80 and
Yeah.
to those
Swiss,
3
yeah.
teams. So it's like maybe that's revealing that those are your, or maybe did OG? Who did OG lose to?
I
They
mean,
lost to 80.
Okay, so then or maybe that's the secret. Maybe Shopify, Snowmen, and M80 are the 3 teams that we should be looking at because they're the 3
Yeah.
teams that can't beat the clear
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the scenario you want to look at for the next
Mhm.
But anything can happen. It's the Rocket
Anything.
League.
3. One of these
Yeah.
teams might not make the. Honestly, just knowing NA, one of those teams won't make the next regional.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
wait.
Will not make the next week.
Definitely.
Yeah. There's absolutely a way that happens.
Incredible. Well, we we have one thing that's inevitable, the G2 Gen G Grand Finals. But outside of that, this most recent NA event was a lot of fun to watch. We had some fun
Most fun in a
storylines,
long time.
some new teams kind of showing their stuff here this past weekend. But we've got some more inevitability in Sam and Mina. Let's talk about those 2 regions together. Furia and Falcons are that's just your top dogs.
Yeah, they are unbelievable teams. And they deserve to be seen as serious contenders to win major tournaments.
Yeah.
They seem to have a complete chokehold in the region, but it seems like their level, especially them going and getting reps against the best European North American teams, have brought up the rest of the region because it's kind
Yeah.
of a scuffle now. After the first split, it was a very solid top 2 in both. So I want to talk about that. Let's start with Sam. How about we? So
It's Team Secrets.
it's Team Secret.
Team
Brad.
Secret coming out above Complexity Gaming.
Mhm.
It seems like Complexity might need some more time to adjust to Diaz
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah.
They're not quite there yet to challenge Furia to every game. They're good. They're a good team. And another inevitability that we haven't mentioned yet is that South American Rocket League is amazing to watch.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
you just look at the quarterfinal between
That's right.
Complexity and Ninjas and Pajamas, went to game 7, and actually is maybe the most important game of this entire playoff bracket and also of this entire regional, because Complexity and Ninjas and Pajamas are fighting for the same points, for the same spot. Those are the teams you're looking at for the world's second seed
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
South America. They can only send 2 teams. Furia is basically a lock-in. So what do you have left? You have Complexity, who went to last major, so they're good to go. They have a little bit of a lead. but then you have Ninja and Pajamas right there with them. So if Ninjas had won that, it would have completely opened up the second seed run for South America. So it was so entertaining to watch. That quarterfinals is one to watch back actually if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean it's a 4-point difference now. While it was only I think 3 last year. I think it was or no, sorry, last split it was 6 for a quarter and 9 for a semi. Now it's 8 for a quarter,
Ooh, I don't
12
have
for a
the
semi,
numbers, but it's
I
close.
believe.
It's close
Um,
enough that you can do it in like one regional.
yeah, and so
For
yeah,
sure.
I mean it's great. But my question to you guys is, Team Secret, KV1, Mata, and Brad, 3 players who had made, you know, lands last year, didn't have a great first split. Seemed kind of like they couldn't crack that upper bit. They're back in the finals. They made a huge, like you said, a huge leap in the points. Nip finishing top 8 after almost making the major. Complexity being stopped top 4. So Hootie, what do you think? What's your thoughts? Do you think that we're about to see maybe a team like Secret or a team like Crew came top 4 as well after
Mm.
having a really, really rough one, really rough first split? Pardon me. Do you think we're going to see more of a consistency, or is it time for classic Sam 2 chaos where like there's 8 teams in the running for Sam 2 like there is felt like every split for the last few years?
Well, there's been some key changes. Crew, obviously, you were a Crew believer early in the season. They had a little bit of a rocky start, but in between splits, they removed Card and added Wisty.
Mhm.
So, they're just like we're seeing in North America. Some of the new emerging talent is taking over some spots from some of the older legacy players, and also just sometimes a fresh team composition can be helpful. And I think obviously it was here with Crew. I think we're definitely going to get that battle. I think Gins mentioned the game 7 between Complexity and Ninjas. That wasn't the only game 7. We saw Secret go to game 7 with W7M in the quarterfinals. And so, it's not just one team or two teams. It's 3 or 4 teams in Sam that are all able to knock on one another. And, nobody's been able to dethrone the Kings of Furia.
Hmm.
But just like we talked about with NA, in NA it's 2 teams, and then we've got a big mess. In Furia, and they've only got half the spots, so it's kind of the same situation, just on a smaller scale. They've got one king, and then there's a mess right here. We've got W7M, you got Secret, you got Crew, you got Ninjas, you got Complexity, and obviously Complexity. That's where your assumption lies, but I think anything can happen.
Yeah.
What do you think,
Yeah, yeah.
Jens?
I mean, you have Furia at the top, and then you have Team Secret right now taking a little bit of a lead, but that's just not, any security for them at the
Right.
moment. I don't see it that way. Even though this weekend they looked almost unbeatable, except for that Furia squad, where they also went 3-0 through the Swiss stage. I mean, that's gonna give them some, some really good confidence, and that's what, of course, you kind of need to do if you want to secure your place at the other side of the bracket. So you're going
Yeah.
to meet Furia in the grand finals, because if you're actually meeting them earlier in the tournament, you're making it very, very unnecessarily difficult for yourself.
Mhm.
So right now, Team Secret, they might run away with it, but I feel just like Hoodie, I feel like there's too many teams still too close to them to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. Well, Jens brought up a good point there about the kind of the mess that's going on and what can happen. And I think we look over to Mina, and we've got a
Mhm.
similar situation over there where I talked about this last week or maybe the week before, but it was after the roster changes and everyone began to kind of switch sides from Rule 1 going to take that second spot to now everybody was starting to say that they believe in Twisted Minds, and I kept saying I was so confused, I didn't understand, and yeah, I didn't get it. But Twisted Minds are here, and they, um, and I may not be 100% accurate here, but I think that was probably the closest series against Falcons, probably from any team in MENA this season. I mean, that was a game 7 in the grand finals,
Yeah,
and
Rule 1
Falcons
had one
scored.
game 7. They went 4-3 in the second regional of the first split, but it
Gotcha.
wasn't like this. This one was like seriously.
Final seconds.
Yeah.
Final seconds. I mean, an incredibly clutch play from Killers in literally the last 5 seconds. Like there was 4 on the clock when they scored. He outplays multiple players, lofts it up high. TRK's there for the finish. Killers is bumping players out of the net as well. It came down to the wire, and so I have to admit, I see what everybody is saying now. I didn't understand. this Twisted Minds roster, with the addition of Ahmad, they're the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of owe Ahmed an apology too, because
Yeah.
I've actually suspended my Nupo Nation membership due to recent events that we won't talk about. But I think he played a much more vital role in creating the sort of ideal play style environment for that team to let his young superstar cook. But Rule One just did not look good at all through
Yeah.
the Swiss. They did not look good in their top 8 match. Um,
I mean, they were
and
almost 1-2 in Swiss. I know I caught a couple
yeah,
series. They were struggling with teams that they just should be beating.
yeah, and so I feel like I'm gonna say sorry. I'm sorry, Ahmed. I
Yeah,
doubted
same.
you. I didn't realize that you were, still that guy. Or I did, but I didn't, not to the degree. I thought you were, I still thought Rule One were gonna be able to do it because they seemed like they had such a top level player. But I can't remember who said it in the shift core, but someone pointed out that Nupo's defensive rotations are a little weird, and Ahmad was almost always making up for him for that. I have to go
Yeah.
back and look at it to see if it's true. But it seemed like maybe it was something like that where Rule One hadn't figured out, because Venom's very much like a first man, how to like work together yet.
Yeah.
Where it felt very much like Twisted Minds. Ahmad just slipped in. Let's hoop. Let's play a certain way.
Right.
It probably helps that Ahmad's probably the guy that every single MENA player has patterned their game against, as he was kind of the godfather. So they kind of know how to play around him naturally. But yeah, I mean, that team looked really good. They really, really impressed me, and I think that they're going to be the team to represent. Even though we'll get to this in a sec, there's another team that I'd much rather see, but I don't know if they're going to be able to figure it out.
But you were right, by the way, that literally only Rule 1 actually took them to Game 7 in the
Mhm.
Open Qualifier 2, and also before that in the Saudi E-League. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Saudi
what it's
E-League
called.
Season 1. But that's a while ago now. That's a year ago. So it was really just Rule 1 who was challenging
Yeah.
Falcons. Of course, we've talked up the other teams. We've tried to make it interesting.
Sure.
And it was, if you actually watch the games, there were interesting matches there. But if you really look at who's got a good chance at winning, especially against Team Falcons, it was really only Rule 1. And
Yeah.
they're not that guy anymore. So now there's some other contenders. And I know which team you want to talk about. You want to talk about Team Rock.
Mm.
But
Is it Rock or is it ROC? Does
I
anyone
don't
know?
I've heard more people say Rock than RC.
Okay,
But
we're going
I'm
Rock.
not
It's
sure.
way easier to
What do
say
you think,
too.
Hoodie?
Way less syllables.
I like Rock.
Let's go with Rock. But I actually also want to highlight R8
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everyone, when I was watching the Row 1 stream with Squishy, and Squishy was like getting into it, and he was like, what other teams are like contenders, guys? Can
Yeah.
you tell me? And the whole chat was like R8, R8, and they were right. They were
Mm.
absolutely right. R8 were challenging all the other teams.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like their players have been around for a while now, and it feels like they're finally coming into their own.
Yeah.
But I mean, with Team Rock, we talked about Scribbles not being able to play last year. None of the players on Team Rock would be eligible to play in the RLCS if it was the same rules as last
Insane.
year. 3 14-year-olds who have slowly
Yeah.
gotten better all season. I think they went top 32, top 24, top 8, and now they've made their first top 4. And this team is spectacular to watch.
Yeah.
We always we talk about it. Feels like every year there's a new batch, small, maybe 1 or 2 MENA prodigies that come out.
Yeah.
These are the MENA prodigies. These guys are phenomenal. They're a great watch. They still got stuff to clean up, but it was very much like watching the Snowmen, and we'll get to that comparison later. So, my question to you guys:
Yep.
obviously, we do not have auto qual anymore. And we don't, and they're gonna have to do this all over again twice. But do you think we're about to see the youngest team ever make a run in the RLCS, the youngest regular main event team? Now that they've made 2 before, I can call them that. Make a run and get to London without even turning 15.
Make a run.
No, they're like, I want you to stand on it. Are they making the major? Yes or no? Are they going to overtake Twisted Minds in the next 2 regionals?
No. Will they make a
don't think
run?
so, either.
Yes. I think they'll continue to. I mean, the trend is there. It feels like they're just gaining confidence. And I feel like this is just a recipe for these young Mechie teams. You just have to go in and experience some failure, experience a couple hardships, and then you'll get there. Not like you said earlier, Michael, not everybody's going to be Team Queso. It's not one split, and then you're in the grand finals of a major, right? And I think that's just kind of a poor expectation to place on yourself because it's such a high bar to reach. But yeah, I mean, looking at these guys, the mechanics are there. They're in a region that I think is a very intelligent region. The way they approach the game, their 50-50 game is strong. They're very, very fast. They challenge quickly. And these guys are also no strangers to 1v1s, which I am definitely a fan of. I think 1v1s help players develop their skills for 3v3 as well. So, I mean, it's only up from here for this Rock team. I think they're going to continue to establish themselves as one of those top 4, top 5 in MENA that is punching up at the Falcons, but I don't think they're there just yet.
Yeah, I for the North American fans or the NA RLCS fans, I think there's a really good comparison to make here with Team Falcons being your Gen G, let's say.
That's right.
But it's closer in NA, and Twisted Minds being G2.
Yeah.
And then you have two other teams making the semifinals last weekend, which were R8, which is your Space Station Gaming, which is a really good shot at being in that top 4, ending
Yeah.
up there in third place, and your Snowman, or aka Team Rock, the inexperienced team that this is their opportunity to get that experience. Do I think they will be back in the semifinals? No. I think this is what they need to build on to get more consistent, to get the experience of what it's like to actually play Twisted Minds in the semifinals, play the best teams in the region. And they've been around for a little bit now. They've been on the radar for the Next Up campaign the entire season. But this is the first time they're actually showing up. The same with Snowman, honestly.
Yep.
And the whole Next Up campaign is eating so good right now. But
ball knowledge is being proven.
I think a team like R8 and especially Twisted Minds, but as an outsider shot, I think R8 has a better chance of getting over on Twisted Minds than Team Rock.
Can I ask you guys one small thing before we move on? Because we're going to talk about this now. We're going to talk about Team Rock even more in just a moment. So let's say in the next 2 split, like what Fury and Falcons have done is it's like almost unprecedented. Besides like the old Falcons teams, for developed regions, for regions that have been around for a while, we've really never seen anything like this. If one of those teams has just a bad off-day stinker, goes out 2-3 in Swiss, which team, and this isn't the best team, but which team do you think will be most privy to just eating up the points and grabbing that regional win? And I think that's very much an experience thing where it's like not panicking, like, oh my god, Fury lost. Fury lost. We need to win, right? Which team? Because to me, it feels like that's Crew's best shot. And to me, that's like similar to how LG made a final by just getting easier matchups. I feel like that's Crew's best shot, and I also feel like that's I think that's Rule 1's best shot. Yeah. Because I think that they I think that for them, no one's proven to be able to consistently stop Nupo, right? He has to kind of stop himself. And if they figure it out, but I think that if it's more of a placement game and there's that team is still up, I feel like it's a completely different question.
I think
I like the Rule 1 pick.
Yeah, I like the Rule 1 pick.
I think that's indeed the experience, and they can bring the consistency. All the ingredients are there to cook and to do something with that opportunity. I don't know about Crew though. I think it's tough. I think it's a harder pick in South America.
Yeah, same.
I
would say them or Secret. I feel like Secret could do it too, but Secret's already jumped out to it because Secret is very much a veteran team.
Yeah. But then Ninjas and Pajamas, Nip comes to mind for me as well.
Yep.
I think Ninjas and Pajamas, I would give them a higher chance to do that than Crew, but I could be wrong there. I think it's close.
When I watch back the Complexity Team Secret top 4, the most KV1 ball series of my life. Every single game was either 1-0 or 2-1. Like it was just like, if you're gonna score, like you're gonna have to fight for it, because we're not overcommitting until there's 15 seconds left. It was so good. I want to see them at the major.
All right, let's talk about SSA. And this is our final region that played this past weekend. Like I said earlier, we split things up. So we'll kind of do some previews for the other regions later on in the show. But right now, we got to talk about SSA. And,
You
I mean,
almost forget to mention them at the start of the segment, and that's because they almost didn't play.
yeah. I hate that this
True.
is like this. This is the story where we're talking about a whole region. It's that, unfortunately, the top four did not feature any SSA teams. It was all European teams. And I think one or two of them were either boot camping or have relocated. I think a couple of them are at home playing on high ping. But we've talked about this a couple times on the show. It's been talked about on every show that there is. Psyonix this season has removed any type of regional restriction. And me in America, Michael in Canada, and Yins over in Europe, we could make a team and queue in APAC if we wanted to. We could play RLCS APAC. There is no restrictions whatsoever, so anybody could play. And you might think that sounds good, but when you look at the other rules and structure of the league, in my opinion, it's not cohesive. We have regional determined spots at international events. And when I look at that, I think there's been debates about this, and I field this all the time on my stream, but people say Worlds we don't need to guarantee APAC a spot at Worlds. We need the 16 best teams. People will make those claims. And that is a perspective. That's fine. The World Championship, you want the most elite. Okay, that's fine. But Psyonix has chosen not to do that. And I feel like the choice to ensure that every region gets some representation indicates that you want that region to grow. I don't know what else it could imply, right? And so which was also something that they changed this past offseason, they took a spot from NA, gave it to Mina 2, or whoever, and then they took a spot from Europe and gave it to SSA. And so to me, that implies, like I said, you want to continue to develop the talent in Mina, which has shown such prowess at that one seed that they get, or that one spot that they get. And SSA is obviously going to struggle to grow when they're not getting to face competition internationally. And so you give them a spot. But then you remove any restrictions, and now that spot is going to be taken by European players. And I talked about this as soon as I saw the rule. But here's what effectively has happened. Psyonix took the 5 spot from Europe, all right? So it would have been Magnifico. And they gave it to a team that can't even make top 16.
Yeah.
These teams that are going to SSA are 24 to 48. And so now what you've done, because I don't know if it's negligence where we're not thinking through the rule changes that we're making, or maybe they just don't really mind. They don't care. But the rules, just to me, the big problem that I have, it's not cohesive. We can talk about the players, what's morally right, morally wrong, yada, yada. But in my opinion, the rules just don't seem to gel. They don't seem to mesh to me. They seem to be pointed in different directions. I always talk about as a coach, your job is to point your team in the right direction right here. Like everybody moving the same way, chasing the same goal. These feel like they're chasing different goals. Removing any region restriction feels like you want to open up opportunity for every player, everywhere. You want the highest level competition. You want the most elite Rocket League. Nothing matters as far as who's playing, right? So that's what that rule indicates to me. But then dedicated regional spots indicate something different. So I can't figure out where they're headed with some of these decisions, specifically regarding these two rules together. One way or the other, or one rule or the other by themselves, I don't necessarily have problems, but it's when you put them together, I just can't piece together what they're aiming to do.
Yeah, but let's be clear, it's a bad rule situation. And it doesn't look like it's malice, because we've said this before as well. It looks like it's really just to draw it level with Fortnite Esports.
Yeah.
To make the rule set the same. There they have these open, like non-restrictive regions. Right. So that's what we get to. So I don't want to count it to malice when it can be counted to not really knowing what they're doing, because that's kind of what it looks like.
It's ignorance. It's ignorance.
And I'm not super familiar with Fortnite, but I feel like it kind of makes sense when you are a solo player Do you know what I'm? Does that like
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't?
ping matters a lot less
Sure,
in
sure.
shooters than it does in Rocket League.
And
Like,
it's typically large lobbies, is it not?
yeah.
More, no? So people won't actually try that because shooters in shooters ping matters more.
I mean, I know that in a lot of BRs,
Excuse me.
players like I'll watch if you watch like the big Apex streamers, they play with like players that are playing from OCE when they're in
Well,
NA.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
It's just like less. So
yeah, I think the ping discussion. I mean, I would assume from Fortnite's perspective is like it's up to the player. Like if you want a worse ping, then
yeah,
so be it. So that
yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a side note, but um, yeah, I like I say, I think the biggest thing for me, I'm not about to hate on the players because ultimately they're pursuing opportunity that is
Yeah, of course.
well within their right to do. I just really just the big thing for me too is I just don't understand. It's not even that I disagree. You know, if Psionics had chosen to go with representation, making sure every region, and it's not so much about like the very best 16 teams in the world at Worlds. You know, there's a lot of people that are not going to agree with that, but you can see what their intention is. Like you see, it makes sense. My big problem with this is and maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe I just don't understand, but I don't see what their intention is with doing these things together.
Yeah, and of course, don't hate the players, hate the game.
Sure.
But hate is not what I was feeling. I was feeling sadness.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we were just getting into the conversation last week about Chess Show, the 13-year-old player who
Hmm.
made the main event in SSA from Réunion, from the region itself, which is an incredible story and brings a much more positive light
Yeah.
to the region. And we're back to square one, it feels like, with this discussion, because now it's not just our worries about it, it actually happened. We had a top four with not a single SSA player in there. They were all European. It's sad to see because I want to have a conversation about what the players are doing, what kind of great, interesting matchups we've had. But this is what it comes down to. We're talking
Yeah.
about the invasion, which now actually comes to a point where it's not Limitless who can hold off anyone else. But they do get beaten because you have VKC and you have some decent European players, not players who could actually get into main events, maybe even in Europe, but they're up there. I was listening to Greybeard's, SSA caster and community figure stream yesterday. He calmed down a little bit. He turned on the stream while he was on holiday, or somewhere in Cape Town, I think. And he was talking about the situation. I'm sure we'll have Greybeard on at some point as well. He's a great guy. Right now, I just wanted to kind of relay his point as well as his point of view, because I feel like that's important too from the region.
Hmm.
He's a very mature guy. He's in his 50s. For him, he doesn't even want to talk about the rules.
Yeah.
It's not about what rules there are. We just have to deal with the hand we've been dealt. And for him, this is an opportunity for improvement. Because if you don't have any players from any other regions coming into SSA, coming into Sub-Saharan Africa, you're never going to get better, right? You just have to use the week or two you have at a major when you have that one spot to improve. And that's only for the best team in the region. So they're in a spot a little bit like Oceania, where it's very hard for them to improve because they're so far away from everyone else. The ping just makes it very difficult. So there is an opportunity to improve, right? There is an opportunity to play against all these European players, even though they're not the best in the world. They still can get the talent from the region itself to a higher level. But then people have to work to make that happen. That's not going to happen automatically. It's not just because there's Europeans playing in the region in RLCS now that you're actually going to see that kind of improvement, because they need to be scrimming the region.
Hmm.
There was an interview with one of the British players, I think, who was playing region after their quarterfinals win, and he just flat out admitted to never scrimming any of the teams. I know there's a little bit of dislike from both sides. I know Limitless doesn't like the invaders to the point where they don't scrim them at all, which you can have your thoughts about as well. But overall, what we need to see is some more respect. And there, I won't hate on the players, but I think there is a call for them to
Yeah.
step up, to show that they have the experience from European Rocket League. Even though they're young players, they have to be the mentor, they have to fill the mentor role for other players, either by teaming up with them, by scrimming them, by playing ranked against them. I know that last point might not be the solution because you're waiting for 2 hours to even get a game, but there are ways to improve the
Yeah.
region, to work with this, because there is an opportunity for improvement. You just need to take advantage of it. And what you're seeing right now is that that's not happening nearly enough. So what you get is you need maybe 3-4 years to see some kind of improvement, and all the while, the actual SSA players aren't even getting the chance to play the majors because that spot will just be taken
Right.
up by the best European team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you guys said it. We don't want to hate on the players. I'm not going to hate on them, but I'm going to criticize them. To me, this is a non-competitive rule above anything else. It is a cop-out rule, right?
Yeah.
You have the chance to play in the most competitive region on the planet. If you want to put the time in, you can become one of the best players in the world. Instead, you admit total defeat. I talked about this with the Young Money Clan thing. You admit total defeat. I am not good enough to play in Europe. So I'm going to go over here. I'm not going to scrim. I'm not going to, some of them fly over, but they're not going to really do that. I'm going to take advantage of a less developed region due to less servers to waste a major spot because I don't even think I'm good enough to play against those European teams. If you don't think you're good enough to play against Carmine Corp in Europe, why do you think you're good enough to play against them on land? That would be my question. If
It's
you don't think you're
another
good enough to play
reason.
them,
It's another reason why it's so hard for SSA to improve from the European influx, because they're not even the best European teams coming in.
yeah,
So
exactly.
even if they manage to get to the level of the European players
The
coming into the
38th
region,
best
you're
team.
still not even in the top 20 in Europe.
So look, I totally agree. And if you want to make some money, you want to travel places. I understand that, especially because they're so young. To me, it's just, yeah, it shows me that we are not at a point in the esport where we can, in good faith, say that we are a 100% competitive game. If we have multiple teams deciding that they're not good enough, so they're going to try to gain, there's more gamesmanship going on than actual play. And like I said, like you guys said, I'm not hating. I'm not saying what they're doing is bad because it's allowed. But to me, like I think I said it before, I think the top players in the world, I mean, like how many players in Europe could move to NA and farm it? Like how those top teams. What if Carmine Corp decided I don't really want to have to go up against BDS and I don't want to have to go against Vitality every week. Let me go down and get free grand finals like G2 and Gen G. They could do that, right? Vatira and Zen could go over there and just, but they want it because that's what makes the French the best in the world, because that they have that drive to be the best. You don't have the drive to be the best if your only reason for going to SSA is you want to go to London and like get a player pass and like that stuff. Like you already don't think you're good enough. So I think it's indicative of that we need to like have a mentality shift. That we should be talking about this in a rules sense, more of a like, do you not want it? Because if you don't want it, don't play. And that's all. It upsets me because I know there's so many people who do want to play, and those kids in Sub-Saharan Africa, those kids in Réunion that have been waiting years to play this game, and you decide because you don't think you're good enough to beat like bubble EU players, you get to just go and ruin that for them. To me, I wouldn't respect it. Like I said before, if a kid told me that they were going to do that and I was coaching them, I would tell them to get off the team. But once I want to really also stress, this is my opinion. This is not fact. I'm going to say it for the third time because I don't want this to be misconstrued. They are allowed to do it, and I'm not hating on them for doing it. It's disappointing to see, how far we've come as an esport, and we still have people that are just so excited to go 0-3 and go back to like not thinking they're good enough to make main event in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little sad. I think it annoys me that this is what we need to talk about instead of the actual good players and the good Rocket League that's being played. It's an awkward situation overall. I feel like the teams are mostly respectful to each other, which I do appreciate. It feels like some of the fans aren't, because Tasho, 13-year-old kid, got mentioned on the next up list. There's some more eyes on this kid now. and he gets some DMs on Twitter saying he's not good enough, and he wouldn't make it because he's like a GC2 player, GC3. Yeah, he can't get ranked games in that region. It's just crazy what happens.
I want to say, 'cause I was unable to catch Greybear's broadcast, but appreciate you sharing that stuff and just the largest of admiration for Greybeard and the way that he is handling it and trying to set an example and kind of guide the region to deal with the obviously not ideal situation. Full respect for him, kind of taking a high road, if you will, and saying like, look, let's find a positive. Let's try to use this as a way to improve. And again, full respect to that. But I am not in SSA, and I am not an individual that has to take the high road. And I will say that I do think it's a rule problem. I do think that these players should not be allowed to do this. I don't like it. I don't think that it makes sense.
Yeah.
I agree with what Michael said as well. As far as it's kind of a cop out, it's kind of an admission that you know that you're not going to be able to compete in your home region. But here's the problem, Michael. Those players would willingly admit that. I don't think that they would. I don't think that would offend
Yeah.
them. You know what I mean? They know that, they're comfortable with that, and they're just gonna.
I totally agree.
it.
I think they would do it too. I just think that that's exactly the paradox of this rule, is that you are allowing people who don't think they're good enough to compete with the best teams in the world to play in a region, to go to a LAN, to compete against the best teams in the world.
Right.
They've already told you that they
It's
can't
a
do it.
losing scenario, huh?
Right? So it's like, nah, that's just a wasted spot. That's like
I
a spot
agree.
that can go to not only a native SSA team, but if that was going to be like the top, like the bubble European, that European teams have just missed it. The North American teams have just missed it. Like those
Yeah.
teams think they can compete. And if you don't think you can compete against the best teams in your region, you should not be able to take a land spot because
Take
you've
a
already
land
said
spot,
you can't
yeah.
win.
That's right. Which is why they should freaking put the
Like
rule
I
back
bet
in
you
place.
Kevin thought he could make top 8, and no one thought Kevin maybe 1-3 for Elevate. I bet you Kevin, LCT, and
Sphinx.
Sphinx. Sorry, I forgot the goat. All thought they could make top 8, just even though no one else thought they would, because
Yeah.
they want it.
Yeah.
If you don't want it, don't play. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't play.
All right, let's do this. Everybody watching?
Yeah.
Big deep breath.
And out.
Let's let it all out. Okay.
Let's talk young talent. Let's stop talking. Let's
That's
stop being
right. Let's
depressed.
praise some folks. Next up, Rookie of the Week. We had an awesome week for some of the next up roster. There's some shakeup as well, moving from the first split into the second. Some players graduate out. We've had some new additions to the roster. Y'all go check it out, shiftrle.com. All your content is there. But we got to shout a few out. All three on the Snowman. Scribbles, Frosty, Reveal, all three on Team Rock, Dr. Known, Nush, and Ops. They are balling out 2 top 4s in their own regions. Jens, who is your next up Rookie of the Week?
Well, I'm gonna reveal. It's Reveal.
No way.
Yay. Okay.
Don't you
Now that we're over that,
Boo! Hiss.
Boo.
look at this kid though. Bro was dialed in.
Monster.
He was playing some Rocket League,
Mm.
and he was playing it well.
Oh, yeah.
For someone with his experience,
Yeah.
which is not a lot, he did extremely well. Of
Yeah.
course, he has someone who's been on NRG on his team,
Mm-hmm.
but
Short stint.
was he was there to really, I mean, against Netherlands Canada, he put up a 1.729 score.
Slaughter.
Wow.
He's a shooter, man. He's a
What's
shooter.
the saves per game there?
Oh,
You have it up?
See that? I have.
Just quickly, I
in a
want to say
second.
while we're talking about Reveal, I was watching Roldez's stream. Xpeer was
Yeah.
talking about him. So this is actually the first split he's not playing from the West Coast. It seems like.
Oh,
he was on
okay,
80
nice.
ping for his whole career before. And he was
Gotcha.
saying
Look at
he was
that.
saying how he thought Reveal was the best player, but he was like he just was playing on 80 ping. Now he's playing on 20
Right.
ping. Like, come on. I don't know if he had switched or if he was saying like once he gets on 20 ping.
Sure.
But either way, he was at one point or he's still playing at a ping
Yeah.
disadvantage and still balling.
Yeah, well, he scored almost every goal for
Yeah.
them.
He's a
against,
shooter, man. He's a cleanup
Netherlands,
guy.
America. His saves per game was 1.67, the same as
Wow.
Frosty, but his goals per game was 2.33.
Yeah. That's incredible.
It was 10 goals during their sweep against Netherlands, Canada.
That is a tough name.
It is a tough name.
You're a trooper.
I will have to keep trying though. But yeah, no. Reveal had some live games, at least for his short career.
I think
up until now.
Reveal is kind of the unsung hero on that team. You know, Scribbles
He
was
feels
just
a
there
little
was, in my
risey,
opinion.
huh?
Yeah,
Feels a
yeah,
little
exactly.
rise
Yeah.
on Queso, where he just
You know,
cleans the cleanup
Scribbles.
guy.
Scribbles was just that young gun that everyone knew, like, oh, he'll be here in 2 years. He's doing well in ones. He's in the ranked lobbies in pros. And so everybody kind of knew the Scribbles name. And then obviously Frosty had his big explosion popularity-wise this offseason with a couple tryouts. And Reveal, it just feels like he is just kind of this afterthought almost on the team. And I think you're totally right, Jens. He is a huge piece of their success and very, deserving of the praise. I think he's overlooked by large portions of the community.
Yeah.
Michael, who you got for us for next up of the Rookie of the Week?
So for me, I'm taking it down to Team Rock. I'm gonna go with Nush. I think all three of those players are quite special.
Mm-hmm.
They've done. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, by the way. I'm sure it's another pronunciation. We'll just go with it. I think all three of those players have shown a lot, but this specific event, I felt like Nush's playmaking was on another level. His like ability to create chances through his mechanics was really, really impressive. I thought he was the driving force of this run from what I watched. And I think, I felt like with Liquid, it kind of over time became apparent that Atto was the one that was going to become like the Pantheon player. And I feel like this was a type of performance that I would be like, if Nush ends up being the best of all three, this is when I first noticed it. Cody, you got 4 players left.
I got 4
Who you taking?
left. I'm going to go with the legend, Frosty,
Snowman himself.
the snowman himself. Man, I think I was just really impressed. Obviously, he is the player. As I just mentioned, he got a couple opportunities on teams this offseason, and I think you don't get those opportunities unless like you're something special, and the players on those teams see something special. And so, I don't want to say that I'm not surprised by any means, but I was really excited to see Frosty do what we know he can do. He's very mechanical. He's very capable on ball. I think he's one of those players that will have you as a defender, like you freeze for a moment. Like you have to think, like he's got so many different options, so many tricks in the bag, and he's so capable and at executing it on a moment's notice that you just have to be prepared for so many different things where, when you have a player like that on your team, it will many times end up in Reveal putting in 10 goals in a series because he has outplayed one, outplayed two, knocked it off the backboard, and then you've got a free tap in. So I think Frosty was very impressive. Like I said, to be honest, and I don't know if this is a good or bad comparison, but on ball, he reminds me of Aqua, where they're just so smooth, so fluid. It feels like remember the sip glue? It feels like they just have glue on the ball, man.
Definitely
they
a
just,
sip disciple.
yeah,
Definitely
they get a hold of it, and it just feels like it's so difficult to get the ball off of them. So I got Frosty. I think all three on both teams, frankly, are deserving. A top 4 is not easy. So
I think
these
Frosty
rookies are doing their thing.
Statistically, Frosty performed the best, even in their game against Gen G.
Yeah.
He got most saves. He got a 0.968 rating. I mean, that is impressive to lose against Gen G and still put up some decent assists, some good shots.
He had a nice.
Shot the most
They
as
gave him
well.
some space in game 2. I want to
He
say
had some clips too.
Hooked them.
On Mondays, my stream, we always go over some of the best clips of the weekend, and Frosty had some nice shots.
Sorry, Hootie. Where can we catch that stream?
Oh, twitch.tv/HootieHoo. That's 3 O's at the end, by the way.
That's
Look
good
at
to know.
that.
I was going to
What a
say
plug.
quickly
Thank you,
about
Michael.
Frosty, and when we talk about Sipical may have disappeared and gone and lived his
Literally
life, but
just gone.
he will never die because Daniel, Aqua, now Frosty, disciples. Just that counterattacking, like smooth aerial, beautiful ball, man. And so I try to get a typical reference into every episode, so there's mine.
All right, there's our next up rookies of the week. Some fantastic picks. I don't think you can go wrong. Like we said, those players are all very, very, very impressive, very capable. A lot of fun to watch, and we've got some more that qualified for this upcoming week. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it next episode. All right, let's bounce back into it. We're going to take a preview of what we have upcoming this weekend. Europe, OCE, and APAC are rocking out. Europe, big stuff over here. Obviously, this is a really exciting split. I'm very personally invested. I am signed to Oxygen as a creator,
Are you?
caster, etc. Right?
Really?
And Oxygen is one of the two teams that I think most everybody agrees has the potential to dethrone one of these just absolutely dominant French four. So, will Luna Galaxy set the tone here, or will Oxygen set the tone in event one? We're going to take a look at the first round matchups to see where everything plays out. We did have. Do y'all want to cover a couple of the? We had a couple teams miss out on the main event. Do we want to take a look at that before we dive in, maybe?
Should we have a moment of
Yeah, sure.
silence for
A
our
moment of
friends
silence.
of the
A
show?
moment of silence, please.
Our friends of
For-
the show, the Top Cougars.
Top Cougars, man.
From
Simas.
beating
Ah.
gentlemates. From beating gentlemates to not making it.
But yeah, we had, let's see. So Top Cougars missed out. We had Belly Gold miss out. We had Sa miss out.
We had We Dem Girls miss out.
We should have
We
been
had-
first place in the main event. I don't know what's going on there.
We
Internal
had
stuff, probably.
Astral on Solary
Mhm.
miss out.
Yep, Solary.
Wow.
So you got
I
3 or
can't
4
believe it.
very solid squads that just couldn't make it happen. And
Yeah.
it seems like it's just every single event nowadays. You know, it
Mhm.
is absolutely cutthroat. We saw Dig over in NA grabbing Stizzy. They miss out. So
Yeah, like
It
we've
can happen
said
to
with
anybody.
NA, you have a lot of teams challenging for the top 4.
mhm.
In Europe, maybe the top 4 or 5 or 6 is a little bit more
Yeah.
clear. But below that, there are so many teams.
That's right.
There are like 20 teams
Yeah, there
after
really
like
is.
Luna Galaxy that could make the
Mhm.
regional, and all 20 of those
Mhm.
teams miss the regional. I just
And
want to say quickly,
the main thing is consistency. And
That's
that's
what
why
it
we
is.
see some of them, like Top Cougars, not making it.
Yeah.
I see some things about who's the best player to never win a LAN. Can we officially stop pretending Astral's in the conversation with First Killer on that? I don't want to discuss this further. I just wanted to say that. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I know we've been doing this last couple of times. We have a specific special matchup,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
That we're going to talk about. And I want to talk about, I selected it personally. I want to talk about Luna Galaxy. I feel like we've
Yep.
talked a lot about the top 5 teams, but this team is maybe the most interesting, where they could make the LAN, but they could also end up being like a 12th, 14th place team because of, like you said, there is like a top group and then there's less, there's like a huge hodgepodge of teams. And Luna Galaxy feels like the lone team that's in this tier between the top and then the top 5 and the next 20. So they're going to be facing off against, is it Fast Forward? Is that how you say it?
Yeah. Yes.
We've added Smokes in place of Seamus. And to me, this is very important. This is a tone-setting series for the
Yeah.
entire split for Luna Galaxy. If you lose this, you can obviously still regain, but it may show us that at least this first open qualifier version of Luna Galaxy is closer to that like hodgepodge of bottom or like bubble main event team thing than the Oxygens, the BD, and then the French 4.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it. What do you guys think? Is this Luna Galaxy's chance to come out, punch a team in the face, and say we're here, or do you think they're going to struggle as they open up?
I think it is exactly that because Fast Forward is no slouch.
Yeah.
Oxygen
exactly.
played them for that qualifier match and it went to 5. And I'm going to tell you, okay, so this is just a personal Hootie thing. I have seen Edgeby recently in Compact. I've hosted them in some 1v1 show matches on my stream. And when you see 1v1s and you're casting it and you get to watch from their POV, you just get a lot of info about like mechanical ability, fluidity, capabilities, etc. And both of them, I was really impressed with just their movement ability. We roll into that series, and obviously the Fast Forward team was CMOS last split. CMOS left, went to Top Cougars. They pull in Smokes, who was removed from Endpoint. And Smokes is a player that I think there was a lot of excitement around him on his very quick come up. And then it felt like there was a big stall for a while. And now we're kind of like, okay, maybe it's not going to happen, right? But this sucker went absolutely buck wild. They played so well. And Smokes was like, you remember G2 Atomic? And I think I've described him before. Like he looks like he's smurfing where he just turns and cuts rotation up the field. 12 boosts, he's off the ceiling. It doesn't matter. That's how Smokes is playing. He was bumping, he was demoing, he was disrupting, he was taking boosts, he was turning, and he'd be facing defense, facing the retreat, right? He's on his way. He'll just go up in the air backwards. It did not matter to him. He was just going after the ball, and it was extremely effective. And I think you're right where it is a tone-setting series, because Fast Forward feels like one of those teams that has shown a level of consistency. They're typically in round 4, round 5 of Swiss, and I think they are, like you've talked about, like Cloud9 or some of these other squads in NA, they're kind of that gatekeeper. If you can get past Fast Forward, you're solid in that top 8. No. You're going to be competing with those top teams. But if you can't, then you're going to stay out. And I think Luna Galaxy, it's a perfect matchup, because if they come in and they take care of business, a quick 3-0, a quick 3-1, and they're dominant, I think that's going to give them a lot of confidence moving into the rest of the event. And I think you've nailed it. This is a really, really important series for them.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I mean, yeah, exactly. It is Fast Forward not being a pushover team. I think that's really what this comes down to. I don't think it would be such a shame to, get warmed up, get a little bit into the series, and take a loss against a team like Fast Forward for Luna Galaxy. I think that is perfectly acceptable. Maybe they wouldn't like it, of course, but
yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't.
They could bounce back from that, because there's some other teams that you'd expect them to beat more than Fast Forward. But it would, of course, be not a great start for a team that is supposed to actually challenge those Francophone top 4, right? Because that's what they're looking to do. They're there right with Oxygen to do that.
Yeah.
All right. I need a series score, and I need a winner.
3-1 Luna Galaxy.
3-2 Luna Galaxy.
Well, just to make sure that I don't fit in, because I never fit in. 3-1 Fast Forward.
Whoa!
I agree with you. I think Smoke's got a little complacent with an orc salary.
Yeah.
And now he's back. He's got to prove himself to get himself another paycheck. And he's about to show the world that he's still that player, that person onto the scene.
Balling. He was playing so well.
So I'm going to go with it, just because if you guys get it wrong, I'm going to look so smart.
Oh my
God.
God.
The thing is,
I genuinely do think they're good. Like, I think they're like a good team.
Over here in Europe, that kind of stuff happens. We've seen Vitalities lose a first series in Swiss. I know Oxygen has done it a couple times. That kind of stuff just sneak up on you. And like, sure, this Fast Forward team is not going to be on the international mind, the international consumer.
Team,
they're not right, and they're not going to be contending for major, but they are very good. And there's a few of these teams. I think this 100% team with Triton, Crispy, and Luis P, I think that's very, very dangerous. I really like that squad. Totally. The new Resolve, Razier's Cash, Ivan. And you better watch out for Nordschleife.
Nordschleife.
Yeah,
I don't know. Was I close
young,
there?
Couple young guns over there.
The E at the end, so it's Nordschleife.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what it is?
I mean,
do you know what the team name means?
No.
Are we allowed to say it?
It's the northern part of the Nürburgring, one of the most famous racing circuits in the world, in Germany.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
Which is funny, because there's no Germans on that team. There is, however, 2, if not 3.
There's 2.
2 of the next up.
Yeah, I think Gom's played too many regionals, right? Or is it the other one?
Yeah, Eugen and Pisky.
Yeah.
It's Pisky.
No, Pisky's 80 years old. There's no way. Yeah, Pisky's been around since like RLCS existed, I swear.
Oh, he is French.
He's like a French bubble legend.
Whiskey drink.
Yeah, it's whiskey.
He is 18, but he's been around in too many regionals, I think.
Yeah.
But Eugen was balling. He was clipping on Vitality.
He's special.
Whoa.
That's the next French kid that's just gonna farm in my region.
Like I was mentioning earlier with the show matches, we've had Eugen on quite a bit, and I love. Here's the thing, okay, and I don't talk about it because it's just gonna come across as me whining because I want content. But I struggle so hard to get NA players to do 1v1 show matches. And I get it. Like, I'm not a huge stream like Fear and Johnny. So, like, I understand there's no incentive, or there's less of an incentive. But the European players are freaking clawing. They are chomping at the bit. They're messaging me. And then when they lose, Eugen lost 2 or 3 in a row. And he got in the chat and he said, "Thanks for the opportunity. I'm so excited to grind. Like, I'm getting better at once. I want to do more."
That's great to see.
That's fire.
And like Michael said, they're chasing the next paycheck,
Exactly.
They want to get the salary back. Actually,
Exactly.
Compact and HB were in the Shift Court, in the Discord server for Shift, link
Yeah.
below in the description on YouTube,
blood.
calling each other out and saying, job.
That's
Unreal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been doing a lot of the transitions, and so I'm just gonna keep doing them. So
Do it.
New host. Let's talk OCE, the best region in the world, the most fun region in the world, the only region that you can go out for your birthday. You know, have a few, or like if you're underage, don't have a few. Hang out with your friends, come home, and it's just starting. Like, come on, it's perfect, real prime time. But listen, obviously, Power is the team. 3
Yeah.
regional championships already, and they looked a lot more competitive than the other Oceanic team that showed up at the major. But three new look teams, 3 new look squads. They've once again shuffled around to see if they can find the winning formula, the winning hand. So just to recap, because we've talked about this a few times, but you know, people forget, and OC is not a huge region. The 3 teams that are most likely, unless there's a young team that comes at a kind of left field, to finally take down Power the split are the Pioneers, which have taken no longer have Scrub and now have Super Lucky. So it's Fiber, Super Lucky, and Amphis. Really interesting team. Chiefs, who have taken off or Super Lucky left and Gus left, and they have replaced them with Hunter and Finn. Sorry, Hunter was already on the team. It's Hunter, Kaka, and Finn. And
Great
then
name.
there's Kib Gang. I don't know what that means. I'm kind of scared to say it out loud. It kind of sounds like I should be saying it. Whatever. That is now Shores, Gus, who was formerly of the Chiefs, and Scrub, formerly of the Pioneers. He's on the Pioneers forever. So, question for you guys: which team? I feel like I know the answer, but which team do you guys
Pioneers.
think? Okay, can we move
I
on?
don't even know what you're gonna say, but
No, you're right. You're right. I think we can keep going. That was great. Good job, everybody.
All right,
move
to
on
next
to-
region. No,
let's
but,
move on
but
to APAC.
they're all kind of teams with some players that have been around. That is kind of OCE's strength and weakness at the same time. They have
They're
great
too good
players,
at consolidating.
but they keep getting the same players on teams because it's the talent that stays around. At least experience is not an issue.
True.
Let's put it that way. Even for the young ones, Hunter, is it not even that young anymore? I don't know.
He's like 16. He's still quite young.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, okay, but he's got some experience now, so all good. Pioneers would be the team to take down Power because that was question.
I'll do this. I think they will. I don't.
You
I
think
think
they
that.
will?
Yeah, I think Pioneers will be the 1 seed.
Yeah,
I'm a Lucky believer.
That was
I
my
like that
that was my double down from like a month ago, and I totally believe it.
it was actually, wasn't it?
I'm ready. I'm so ready. See, look, did you just see that face that Hootie made where he's like, "Oh my god, I piggybacked off this guy. It's over. They're not even gonna make the major."
But we're not the kind of guys to stay up late and stay up the all night after a couple of drinks. No.
I go to the club because I'm so bored at home because I'm waiting to get home and watch OCE.
No.
You're not gonna catch me at a club.
We're Europeans.
I don't go to the club either unless
We're
it's to watch OCE.
Europeans. We get up at 6, full of my daily routines that I'm selling on Instagram. We get up at 6 for a run.
GWRM.
We get back at 7, and the game's just starting. Not just for OC, but for APAC as well.
Bang!
So let's
wow,
talk
that was
about
smooth.
APAC.
Well done. Let's
By
talk
the way,
about it.
Let me talk about APAC and OC playing at the same time because we have the 2 regions that are in the same
Why don't
time
they split
zone
them?
playing on the same weekend. Why don't they split them? Same for South America and North America. What's up with that? Why can't you just move one over?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, common sense does not exist anymore, but let's move on. Are the Gladiators once again the overwhelming favorite now that they've added Tho? Or will Elevate prove everyone wrong once again?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Here.
Like-
There's a formula. Okay, are you ready? Where's Tho from?
Europe.
Europe.
Europe. Where is
The
ZPS
Netherlands.
from?
NA.
And
And when we have EU in relation to NA, where does the greater than sign go?
EU
NA is
Okay,
better
so
than
yeah,
EU, though.
you're
is greater
there. It is
than
Europe.
NA.
So
Yeah.
gladiators are they're the ones. In fact, they have
Yeah.
two verts
Mhm.
from Europe as
And
well.
like though is like they'll beat Carmine Corp.
Yeah,
Like
those good.
like
Those very
he's
good.
I think it's less about the EU NA because like
Yeah,
low key NA
that's
is
the
better than
thing.
EU.
No, come on.
No, because like yeah,
The narrative.
where's EU's beast mode? Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
All
Where's EU's
right.
beast mode? Beast mode has a diamond chain and a Hellcat.
Ooh,
Okay, that's all I gotta say. But
Oh,
good
you
rebuttal.
should have seen
um,
Zen in Düsseldorf after Worlds. This guy was ruling the streets. What is he? What
okay,
was he? 15, 16-year-old? He was ruling the
we're
street. He
not
was
gonna go.
walking around like he owned the place. It's
We're
not
not
even
gonna
in his
have an
own country.
aura off right now. Okay, we're not gonna have an
Oh
aura off. We're
gosh.
talking about APAC, which is a pretty auraless region, except for Sphinx and Kevin. But yeah, I mean ZPS is not a main event North American player, and
That's
Though
the
is a main
thing.
event European
Yeah.
player. And like obviously European is like up here, but like
Though is
like not main event NA and not main event EU isn't even the same thing. Like it
Yeah.
actually gets like much steeper there.
Mhm.
And so for you to have a main event EU player versus a not main event NA player, he is going to so badly beat down that region. It's going to be unfair.
Yeah.
It's going to be like when Gladiators first came over under James Cheese, and it was just like they were like barely trying and like playing out of like an Airbnb and like internet cafes and like on laptops and still winning. I think it's going to be similar to that. It's gonna
I
be
feel like we were pretty high on Elevate last split on ShiftCast.
yeah.
But of course, that was helped by Kevin coming on.
yeah.
And,
Just
and,
being
you
the
know,
most
you-
charming guy.
you got to give it to him. Of course, we're going to be a little bit biased towards the GOAT. But at the same time, it wasn't that much of a lucky guess that Elevate were going to the major because
Right.
they were just really close. And yes, Gladiators looked like a little bit more of the favorites back then, but that quickly changed. So a finals appearance there, you know, you never know which way it was going to go.
Yeah.
And here it's not the same deal. We're just not dealt the same hand with Tho coming in. And with CPS coming
Totally.
in, but mostly with Tho coming in.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then you do have one other team, LCT, landing a spot with Sailing Esports.
Formerly Chapati Dream. They're the third place team last.
Yeah,
season.
linking up with a team that's had a decent amount of success over there. And I mean, it feels like it's probably going to be Sailing Esports and Elevate trying to punch up at Gladiators. And maybe one of them will be able to knock them out of an event in a
Yeah.
top 8 or top 4 or something. Maybe. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be tough. Tho is a great player. And the addition of Tho to the Gladiators roster is going to be tough to overcome.
He's the first player where I'm genuinely like, you didn't need to do this. Like
Right.
Vert obviously was quite good, and so was Kami, but it's like, you know, they kind of hit their ceiling where they were.
Right.
And they, you know, we talked about the SSA thing, but like they moved there, they scrimmed
They
the
moved,
teams,
that's
they're
right.
part of the ecosystem.
I mean,
That's
Vert is
fine.
basically Asian right now. He's like
Yeah.
living
there
his life.
Years. Yeah.
Yeah, like so I can't hate on that. If you're gonna be part of the ecosystem, then you know, go. But like Tho was the best player on a top 8 team in Europe for at least one event. Like they were one. So it's gonna be
Mhm.
interesting to see how much he's able to dominate there. It'll be fun for him probably because he gets to play
Sure.
a lot different. Right now he gets to be the mechie
Right.
guy, he gets to like do all the fun stuff, which he hasn't been for a while.
And
All
we've
right.
had our moment of silence for the European teams that didn't make the main event. Let's have a moment of silence for Realize,
Mm.
the
Yeah.
Japanese player.
That is
Yeah.
Who
actually
got
so tough.
kicked off his team, or at least benched. Now, I think he was released, yeah, I was, by Gaming Gladiators the day before roster, or before roster look.
I
Yeah,
I
before
forgot he's not
signups.
playing.
And that's why he's not playing. He couldn't find a roster.
am, and obviously I don't know any of the behind the scenes working, but I was a little surprised that it wasn't Max U.
Yeah, but what does Jens always say? Jens, say the line.
Roster changes are usually, if not always, a matter of outside of the game factors.
I like how you say that like you're an evil villain about the master plan. You're like, you really thought you had.
No, I also do not know why it was Realize making space for Tho to come in.
Right.
All I know is that Virtuoso tried to explain himself on
Oh, don't care. Let's not talk about That was. I'll get into that for like 20 minutes.
But,
The dumbest thing.
it's-
You said he
it's,
tried to explain himself?
He tried to explain himself as to why they had to realize on the last day before
Oh.
signups closed.
He
Oh,
said
okay.
they didn't know, or this is what he said. I'm paraphrasing, so I might get a little wrong, but he said they didn't tell Realize because they didn't know if Tho would be able to get in with a visa, and they didn't want to chalk the team environment if they do. But I don't totally
Which
agree
is a
that was the right
questionable
thing.
excuse.
I agree. It definitely, from our perspective, it's really, really easy to criticize that move and say that's disrespectful. You should have at least given him a heads up. And I don't disagree. But I'll say I also understand where they're coming from because
Yeah, of course.
No, I
things
get
go
it.
how
It's
they
just a
go.
little selfish to me. Like
It
this
is
guy, you
selfish.
play with
It
this guy for
absolutely is.
2 years, and you can't give him a chance to go find another team, at least
Yeah.
go try out.
Agreed.
Like I
Agreed.
don't know.
Things
It
could
is
have
selfish.
worked
You're,
out.
you're right.
I
better.
see the intention. I just think it was handled badly. And there's been
Sure.
that's Rocket League. Like I
Yeah,
feel the
yeah,
same
that's
way
true.
about what happened
It's
with Space Station and
esports.
Retals, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's esports. It's letting a bunch of kids run around and make decisions. Like the decisions I made were not good when I was that age either.
No.
So it's,
No. Some of them
Yeah.
still aren't very good.
yeah. But yeah, listen.
Michael.
You know what would elevate and sailing esports would be considered in their region is a spoiler. So let's talk about the spoilers in Europe specifically with the segment spoiler alert. We are on fire today. So Jens, Hootie, I need one team that you guys believe can play spoiler outside of the quote unquote big six, the 6 teams we expect to compete for that land spot. Which team do you think is the best chance of putting an early dent in one of those teams' major chances?
Hoodie, you go first. I want to hear it. It's a tough one, isn't it?
There's a few, and the reality is
Yeah,
it could be
there
a
is.
number of teams. It could be 4 or 5, or there's 6 of them.
Yeah.
Six
I mean,
or so
I
that
just
think-
mentioned it.
I'm gonna
how-
say
Yeah.
jobless. I think that the squad of Oli, Rezi, and Ixo is still absolutely A tier talent. I don't think they're in that S tier with a lot of the players that are on those top 4 or 5 teams. But they've also got. So I play with a couple people that are much better than I am. All right. And so when I play, I make a lot of mistakes. And so I am really tough to lose to. I'm also 30. Well, 31 actually. And my like there are people, I'm not kidding, I have screenshots. There are people in ranked that talk about they're gonna uninstall the game because they lost to Hootie. And I
Oh
call
my
that
God.
the X factor. When you just have a little something over your opponent and your opponent just cannot bear to lose to you, you have the X factor. And Jobless has the X factor. If Oxygen loses to Jobless after removing Ixo, right? And then Jobless, Oli and Rezi get to take down their former teammate in Joyo. Like that, there's a lot of
Wazowski
extra
time?
pressure on that match, right? And I think this Jobless team is also quite capable as far as their talent goes. So I don't think it's impossible. I think they could definitely play spoiler for Oxygen or Luna Galaxy or any of those top 4 as well. It's an outside shot, I'll admit, but I think it's a good chance to, for one of the teams, get revenge. But then, of course, as the segment is named, play spoiler for some of those other ones.
Yeah, they're all pretty close, and I do think there's a little bit of a gap there. So
Sure.
yes, they could play spoiler, but it's gonna be tough to even play spoiler there, let alone have an actual chance, you know. But I'll let you go first. So you had an easy pick with Jobless, I feel like, but I'm gonna go with Team 3, another
that.
name, another team that we've maybe not talked about as much, but we've always mentioned because they're always kind of in the conversation. They always have to be beat to get to the further stages. You know, they've made it to that Swiss stage so many times, and now they have Noazaki coming in instead of Rizix. And Noah is still a young talent, I feel like, even though when he got picked up he was quite a bit younger. He's 18 now, turning 19.
Really? I feel like he caught on like last year.
Yeah, turning
Wow,
19 next month actually. Wow, so old.
Oh, please. Oh.
I am
He's a
7 years older.
zombie.
But I mean, he's on Resolve. He was okay. Nothing
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
I would say. I think there was more potential that didn't really come
Mhm.
to fruition.
Mhm.
But we're talking about a team that can play spoiler, and I think Noah Zaki is one of the players who can make that happen on Team 3, because Team 3,
Mhm.
they've been around. They've
They
been
have.
doing that all last split, and there's no reason for them to not continue doing exactly that.
Nice. For me, I'm listen. Batira is a very emotional player. He plays with his heart on his sleeve. He's cried on stage, and I respect that about it. He cares so much. That's what makes him so great. But there's only one player who's ever ratioed him so bad on Twitter that he deleted the tweet. That's my boy Growly. Okay, George.
Nah.
The
George.
team is called
George.
Georj. They feature player Growly and coach Adam. I don't know if he's their official coach, but he's been helping them out. Last season, a team with player Growly and coach Adam walked into the Carmine Corp
Mhm.
Stadium and took them down under the beloved alias of Hogan mode.
Mhm.
And it's gonna happen again this upcoming weekend. I'm taking George. I believe in George. I love George. Okay, me and George, we get along.
Yeah.
I have a connection with George.
Okay.
I think that they're going to beat. I think that there is a level of confidence from these specific three players, Breezy, Hibbs, and Growly, who've been
Yeah.
around. They've played with each other before. And I think that they're going to have a little Hogan-esque run to start off this split. We've seen it before. Like I said, 3 British or United Kingdom players, coming in, nothing to lose, and just having a time, coached by Adam. So
I don't think they're
give me
coached by
George.
Adam, actually, because he was coaching Cheers.
Well, he
North
tweeted that
American
he
team.
made region. He
Yeah.
made a regional, but I don't know if that was a troll. It could have been a troll.
Yeah,
Either
I
way,
think-
Cheers.
I'm
Cheers
all
made
in
the
on
regional.
George. Yeah. No, he tagged him. He said made regional in another region. Come
Yeah,
on,
he's
GG.
talking about George. I think
okay.
it's like an unofficial thing since obviously you can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't be
Okay.
on
Anyway,
then I haven't.
George, Rise, Atal, Vatira, get ready to learn George.
I like the George pick. George might need to go on the next up list if it was an individual.
We should let them all go on the next list together as one team. Even though Breezy's been literally invented of 5 years ago. Who cares? George gets to be on the
Just George.
George.
That's funny. All right, well, let's close out the show with our favorite segment, speed taking. And we've got a nice touch here. We are going to include the usernames of the individuals that have dropped the take for us to rate.
And if you, listener, go on and post your take and it's a good take or a bad take, you'll be able to hear your name on the ShiftCast. Isn't that
You
fantastic?
might get featured.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Hoodie,
do you want to go?
I kind of want you to go first.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to give you the first one. All right, this first one. The reason I wanted to ask Hoodie is because this is his job, and so I thought it's time to put Hoodie on the hot seat. This take from Cesar Al Gaib says that Rocket League pundits take recent results into too much consideration instead of relying on a larger sample size of previous performance.
Rocket League pundits take recent results into too much consideration instead of relying on the larger sample size of previous performance.
No, I don't think so. First off, no, I don't do that. Second, recent results are important.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree.
I mean, that's where I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't ignore the history of the player or the team, but the recent results are important. We've seen time and time again how fast moving things are. Just because Vitality was absolutely dominant in the spring, in the major, in World Championship, we roll into the very next season, which I guess was an extended off season, so that's a longer period of time. But things change very, very quickly. Maybe a better example would be we think back to the beginning of the conclusion of the online era NRG versus BDS in the grand finals, which was like what everybody probably would have expected. And then the next two splits, right? NRG just tumbling downward. So I think you've got to look at recent results, and you've got to value recent results if you want any level of accuracy with your predictions and what you're saying. With that being said, it's impossible to be totally accurate. I mean, there's just crazy stuff that happens everywhere, every weekend, every event. So, I mean, if your expectation is for people, pundits, which I think is a hilarious word to call myself, if you think that they're going to be 80% plus accurate, you are sadly mistaken.
You guys ever see that one tweet where Archie just lost in a regional and he just goes, I think it's time for punditry. That's all I could think about when I saw this take. No, it's a cope take though, low key. It's just like my team doing bad. No one thinks my team is good, so it's recency bias and actually working. That's my predict. That's what I think.
Michael,
talk to me.
Beast Mode, LJ, and Monkey Moon are the 3 best Octane players in the world, says Fruit.
Ooh, there's one
This
that
is
might.
This is heresy. Heresy?
Heresy.
How you say it? You have insulted and gone against the Jason Al Gaib.
Oh my god. Unbelievable with this guy.
Because this guy went back on the Octane and dominated Beast Mode all grand final. Okay, you don't get 500,000 RLCS points. Become the first player to ever do so, better than Monkey Moon and Justin.
God,
with not being a top 3 Octane player in the world, it was weird when he goes off into the Fennec. I mean, he's still the GOAT, but like, just weird. FK is the Octane. Him and Monkey Moon to me are the open era Octane players. Yeah, any Octane list, history, recent, open, close, without first killer in it, wrong and bad. Jens, it's time for a take for you.
Noted.
This one comes from Hollow. What's up, Hollow? The extremely close level of competition between the teams outside of Gen G and G2 make NA a more fun watch regionally than Europe.
Laughable. Laughable and ridiculous. It's not about which teams, the narratives are fun and all. And we love to go on about them because they're fun to talk about. But if I'm sitting down to watch some Rocket League, I want to see some exciting Rocket League. I would turn into South America if I want to see some exciting Rocket League.
Whoa. What's wrong with NA?
I would turn into Europe. I would turn into MENA. I would turn into APAC before I turn into North America to watch exciting Rocket League.
Literally, that's just blasphemy. You're just blasphemy. That's ridiculous.
They used to be believable.
We have Frosty. Like what? We have Frosty and LJ and First Killer and Beast Mode.
Hey, a funny thing. Somebody was talking today as I was streaming that they were like kind of bored because NA is the same grand finals every time.
Oh, but when an EU happens, it's because the consistency of these French teams
I
are just
don't mind
different.
that at all. I don't mind the G2 and Gen G rivalry shaping up because they've laid it all down last split, and now we're gonna profit of that rivalry, right? This is what we need. We need some good rivalry between G2 and Gen G. And now I don't need it to be the Gen G era all of a sudden. I think a win here and there from G2 would be fun to watch. But that rivalry is something that's shaping up to give North America a little bit of spice, which they are lacking.
Okay.
Which they are lacking. But I'm talking mostly about the gameplay.
The quality,
when it comes to the quality. I mean, it's decent Rocket League. The quality is good, but it's not fun to watch.
Disagree.
There's no spice. It's
we have 5 power of friendship teams. Like, how is that not fun? Like, half our teams are power friendship teams. It's like
Yeah,
a
but the
dream.
way they played, it's cautious. It's
Yeah, it
it's
just gives
it's
so much space for clips. I can't imagine.
unadventurous. It's no good.
Hoodie, I got one for you.
Okay.
Sorry. A team finishing, this is from Colt.
Hmm.
What's up, Colt? A
Hey,
team
Colt.
finishing 5th through 8th in all 3 qualifiers makes LAN in either NA or EU.
No. Neither.
Speedy take.
No. I mean, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
There's too much consistency as far as like your tippy top. In A, there's obviously the 2 teams.
Yeah.
But Europe, 5th through 8th is not going to be enough. And the
I feel
problem,
like-
like we've got those top 2, but we talked about it
Mhm.
over and over throughout this thing. There's too many fighting for that 3rd and 4th. 5th through 8th is
Mhm.
not going to be enough. You're going to have to poke in the top 4 once. You're going to have to poke into maybe a grand finals if you can. No, that's not going
I
to do
feel
it.
like 2 top 4s is like 2 top 4s and like you can't throw a regional and
Yeah,
that's kind of
agreed.
like the thing.
Yeah.
I will say for this take though, I didn't mention a tiebreaker. I could genuinely see like there being like a 3-way tiebreaker between 3 teams that just made 5th through 8th,
Okay.
like SSB. If, like
So
the
like
snowman
Space
completely
Station
just
goes top 4 twice, and then everybody else ties at
yeah, and
5th
like
through
if
8th
the
or something.
snowman just miss a regional, then
Right.
like you have like M80 OG LG that
possibly.
all went or M80 OG.
Yeah. I'll say no. I don't think so.
Michael
What's up,
from Jamari. He says
my boy?
Gen G and G2 are both top 5 teams in the world.
Yeah, not even. I mean, I think I said that on the list we made afterwards. Right now, I'd have Gen G number 4 in the world. I think the top 5 teams. We'll have to see how Europe pans out, but right now, I'd have Gentlemates and Carmine 1-2, whatever order you want to put it. I know it's a bit of a point of contention. Gentlemates, Carmine at 1-2. I put Falcons at 3, and then I'd put Gen G at 4, G2 at 5, just because they've looked really on the same level against other competition as well as against each other, but Gen G's just been edging them out. So yeah, I think I wouldn't take the resumes or the peak of BDS, who look like I just don't know what to think about them for reasons outside of the game because Monkey Moon's working with an injury. I don't know how I feel about Vitality because their record is just not very good. Like they have a top 8, 2 top 4s, and a top 2. And then I think Furia really disappointed me in that Swiss match and have yet to show that they can really make a deep run. So yeah, I'm gonna go top 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
You built a pretty good argument there.
the Furia
once, right?
disrespect doesn't sit right with me. But other than
Maybe
that,
they shouldn't get farmed by Redosin in 2024, Jens, and then I can start respecting them. But yeah, finally, Jens, the last one.
yeah,
Is we're gonna bring it all the way back to the beginning. Snowmen top 4 NA. This is from Empirize. Snowmen top 4 NA right now already. Yes or no?
right
Hold
now.
on. It says the Snowmen are NA's 4th best team.
Yes, your 4th best team in North America. If you had to put $100 on it right now, at the end of the split, they'll be the best team in.
You think I'm rich?
Yes, yes, I do. Okay,
Right now.
that's how you afford all those ducks.
Yes, yeah, I do have a lot of ducks. They're right there.
There they are.
Right now, yes.
Ooh.
If you can beat Gen G in Swiss stage, I know it's Swiss stage. I know it wasn't Gen G on their at their top of what they can do. If you can beat that team, if you can actually go 3-0 in Swiss in NA, right now, yes, top 4. Let's go.
Okay.
Love that.
I like that.
Love it.
And it was speedy. Well done.
Speedy.
For once.
Yeah.
All right, well, folks, that's going to conclude the show. I mean, we've got a fun weekend ahead. Y'all be sure, like Yin said, drop into the shift cord. The link will be below. Get involved in the discussion. We're calling out these names: Empirize, Jamari, Caesar Al Gaib, Fruit, Colt, and Hollow. Thank you for those takes there in the shift cord. We appreciate y'all getting involved in the discussion. Gentlemen, what are we most excited about this weekend?
The Sixers will be eliminated from the playoffs. They can leave me alone.
I've actually been keeping up with it. I typically don't keep up with sports, but I've been watching the highlights on YouTube.
That team was designed in a lab to make me sad. So I'm glad that their season's going to be over soon. Also, I'm very excited to see Gentlemates like show people that they were a one tournament wonder if they do.
Jens?
What's up for me? I'm going to a fair on Sunday. It's
Okay.
always fun.
You like to
And
ride the rides or no?
Nah. I mean, I'm good with.
Here's my perspective is if it's mobile, like they set it up and tear it down, I'm
Yeah,
out.
yeah. That's kind
a
of the
great
thing.
rule. That's a
I don't like that.
phenomenal rule.
If it's set up and it's there at a
Mhm.
park or something, I'll give it a go. But if not,
I
no
was
thank you.
about to bring that up. Like in a
Yeah.
park, I'm going for it, but
Sure.
it's a different situation at a fair. I recently learned British people call it carnival or some,
Oh,
not just
carnival?
British
Okay.
people, like a
Yeah.
carnival,
Yeah, we
which
call
is
it
kind of
carnival.
weird to me. Because carnival to me,
Well, a fair and a carnival's different. Like a fair is smaller; it's like a town fair, it's
Okay.
like little, and then a carnival's like there's a Ferris wheel and like a
okay.
like, you know.
Oh no,
like-
that's all the same to me. A carnival
Same,
to me
same.
is what you have after a fasting period in the Christian tradition. Not that that matters anymore. Everyone is just there for the parties, but just like it's at the end of February, if I'm not mistaken. It's with the carnival music. It's that's carnival for me. But yeah, other than that, I mean, it's really nice that we have 4 regions to look forward to instead of just
One.
European Rocket League to play. It's a little bit harder to catch everything, but
Sure.
worth it.
Yeah. So
Well, I am excited to watch
Oh, yeah.
Oxygen
Hey,
cook it up. I'm telling y'all, Joyo is just a treat to
Special
watch,
player,
man.
man.
He just has such creativity. You know, it's unique even amongst pros, which I think is pretty incredible.
Totally.
But I'm gonna make a hot take. We're going top 4. First event, we're going top 4.
Not hot to me. I got them in the major, man. I really think they're that
I
good.
like that. They're gonna come out
I mean,
swinging.
if-
I actually got to. We've been filming some content, and I sat and spoke with Joyo for quite a while actually after we got done, and it was really interesting to hear his perspective about just his journey as a pro and where the different ebbs and flows that he's gone through with the different teams, and his perspective with joining this team. And it seems like they're all pretty optimistic and hopeful, and things are going well. So I'm feeling good. I'm excited. I'm definitely excited about the stream on Friday. I think the stream with Fear is going to be a lot of fun to watch this team.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on the team and seeing what they can do. So I'm excited to be a part of
Yeah.
that experience. That
Well, I'll be in the
feels like
chat.
the grand finals have been pretty consistent in bringing forth the best teams from the
Yeah,
regions so
that's right.
far. But in those semifinals, you can see some names pop up that you might not have in your top 4 even.
Mhm.
all
I
right,
think you just
folks.
called Oxygen not top 4.
He did, but we're gonna
I
let that
did.
slide. We'll revisit that after this week's over.
Yeah, let's do that.
Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. This was ShiftCast episode 14. Y'all be sure to drop a rating on Spotify if that's where you're listening. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Y'all check it out. We got all kinds of content on